Hello, and welcome to Today in History for January 8th. I'm Michael Powell. On this date in 1959, Fidel Castro arrived in Havana after deposing the Batista regime. On January 8th of 1959, a triumphant Fidel Castro entered Havana, having deposed the American-backed regime of General Batista. Castro's arrival in the Cuban capital marked a definitive victory for his 26th of July movement and the beginning of Castro's decades-long rule over the island nation. The revolution had gone through several stages, beginning with a failed assault on the barracks and Castro's subsequent imprisonment in 1953. After his release and exile in Mexico, he and 80 other revolutionaries arrived back in Cuba on a small yacht, the Granma, in 1956. Over the course of the next 2 years, Castro's forces and other rebels fought what was primarily a guerrilla campaign, frustrating the larger forces of Batista. After a failed offensive by Batista's army, Castro's guerrillas descended upon their hideouts in the southern mountains and began to make their way northwest toward Havana. Outnumbered but supported by most of the civilians they encountered along the way, Generals Ernesto Che Guevara and Camilo Cienfuegos captured the city of Santa Clara in December of 1958, prompting Batista to flee the country. When he heard the news, Castro began what was essentially a victory parade, arriving in Havana a week later. Castro became Prime Minister of Cuba the following month and played a leading role in the construction of the new state. Contrary to commonly held beliefs, he did not immediately institute a communist regime. Rather, he quickly set out on a goodwill tour of the United States, where President Dwight Eisenhower refused to meet with him, and traveled the Americas, gathering support for his proposal that the U.S. do for its own hemisphere what it had done for Europe with the Marshall Plan. Despite these overtures, Castro's government would inevitably become aligned with the other side of the Cold War. Castro's reforms included the redistribution of wealth and land and other socialist priorities that were unfriendly to foreign businesses, leading to feud with the United States and a close alliance with the Soviet Union. This rivalry, which nearly led to a nuclear war between the superpowers just 3 years later, has shaped the recent history of the region. Castro would rule until the early 2000s, when he was replaced by his brother. During that time, an American embargo of Cuba stymied Castro's dreams of a socialist republic, and hundreds and thousands fled the regime. The Cuba that he left behind was a far cry from the one he hoped to build. But Castro remains one of the most influential political figures of the 20th century. He died in 2016. And that's what took place on this day in history, January 8th. I'm Michael Powell. Won't you come back tomorrow and see what took place on that date? And until then, watch what YouTube has for you.